Welcome back to the Real Estate 401k Show. I'm your host, Mike Weinstein, alongside Justin Frederick and Ryan Gerdes. We are continuing a series on really, in essence, turning a property into a rental property and what is the process. And if you missed Monday's episode, it's some incredible information just about the legal aspects of things and certain questions that you have to consider before you start making that decision and certain things that you got to do. And today we're going to continue talking about what does the move-in, move-out process look like? How do you establish rent rates and how do you find tenants? So you're going to want to go ahead and text the word process to 623-AZ-RECON. That's process to 623-AZ-RECON. So Ryan, we wrapped up Monday's episode basically with identifying the type of property, the type of rental property your property is going to become, whether it's a short-term, such as a Airbnb and VRBO, a midterm, pretty much anywhere between 30 days and I would just say 9 months, and then the long-term, which is typically 12 months or longer. And so let's just start with, the first question, and we got this suggestion from one of our listeners, is to, how do you find tenants and what is the best way to find tenants? And to me, it's not so much of finding tenants, it's screening tenants, because you can find tenants left and right. It's screening them. I'll start with you.
Well, we've talked about a number of different ways in order to use a property as an income producing property. So let's start with long term. Okay. Finding them. We use Zillow quite a bit. We use the MLS, which feeds over into all the other big platforms that people might be using to look for rental properties. And that's fairly straightforward. Anyone can go onto Zillow and put any information that they want to on there. They're kind of the Wikipedia, but Zillow has done a fantastic job of really cornering the long-term rental market because they're an aggregator. What they do is they take information and then they sell it to real estate agents. The ones that convert at the highest rate are long-term renters. So they're the ones that are always on Zillow. They're the ones that they're capturing the most data on. And so therefore, anything that you put on there is going to get quite a bit of traffic. So we use Zillow for all of our long-term rentals. And then as far as how I vet them and how I screen them, well, it's not a whole lot different than Justin, what you do when you're reviewing someone's loan application. I do want to know what their work history is. I do want to know what their assets look like. I want to know what their income looks like. I want to know, I need to know those things. Additionally, though, I do want to know if there's pets. I do want to know how many people, right? Because there is occupancy laws. So if there's 6 people trying to rent a 2-bedroom condo, that's not gonna jive because it's gonna break occupancy laws. So that being said, those are the quick ones that I'm looking at. And then from there, I'm able to do different types of screening based off of whether or not they have a felonious past, if they've ever been evicted before, and if so, when, and what was the deal with that. I do if we're running into some snags, but I really like the tenant, then I will start digging in deep on their references because all of our applications do have a reference element of it. And if I need to, or if I have questions about the income, or if there's some type of major change in it, then I will call the employer. But most of that can be verified from their W-2s and their paycheck stubs. So I am looking at all of those things, and I am interested in what the past couple of years look like. But then there's also an element of what type of property are you renting out. So if I have a luxury property, it's going to be a little bit different than one that I'm using for one that is geared more towards a C-minus tenant, right? Because I don't expect that my $1,500 a month rental is going to attract a 780 FICO score that makes $350,000 a year. It's just not going to happen. So what I usually want out of that is I want to make sure that they have at least three times whatever the rent is. So if the rent is $2,000 a month, they need to gross $6,000 a month. Okay, so that's my income requirements. As far as credit requirements, that will vary based on what the type of property is. And then assets, I do want to see that they're not going for broke just to come up for the security deposit in the first months and the cleaning deposit, et cetera. So I would like to see at least 3 months reserves sitting in their bank account before really considering them. So that's what it is on the long term.
Justin, what are some of the things that you are, because you own several rental properties as well. What are some of the things that you're looking for? And I wanted to point out what's incredibly important for our listeners to understand is there are some great online rental background companies out there where you can register and then you can send a link to a prospective tenant, and then they pay to apply and to fill out the application for your house, and that's where you're going to get all of this information that we're talking about, and I, right, I'm just a big believer. I think I would advise everybody to at least call one reference. It doesn't matter what that application says and so forth. And sometimes that previous landlord is not going to say anything because they really shouldn't. But the question is would you rent to Justin and Sabrina again?
No.
Okay.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
So, Justin, when you're going through a rental application and looking at credit and stuff, what are some of the things that you're looking for that scream yes, and some of the things that are red flags for you?
Okay, so you may choose to try to manage this yourself, or you may choose to have a property manager to do all this stuff for you. I choose for less headache. I don't want the call late at night, but this takes away from your income. This takes away from your net profits. So I choose to have a property manager do this stuff for me, so I don't have to screen through credit applications anymore. I don't have to look at bank statements. I don't have to look at pay stubs. I have a hard time saying no to people. I always look at everybody's
If
best
you're a
side.
softie, you 100% should get a property manager.
I see,
Look to your
I see
right.
people.
Does that look like a softie to you? Yeah, you don't want to be late on rent to him.
I already know. I already know. So I choose to use a property management company. They'll come back to me and say, hey, we have a qualified buyer, but based on my guidelines that I've laid out for them, they'll come back to me if something's not quite where it's at, just like you were saying. I like the application. There's just it's a little bit off, so they'll come back to me for an exception sometimes. I'm pretty big on not bending on those rules if I don't have to meet them face to face, So, just like you said, depending on where my property is and what the value it looks like, it may draw different guidelines. And if it's carpeted or tiled, I got to consider pets even more. If it's got hardwood.
And now you need to be very familiar with the service animal laws that are out there, because especially here in Arizona, it's very, very lax for tenants, and it's very, very difficult for landlords to even ask some of those questions.
Yeah, but if you choose to use a property manager, cost to property managers are all over the board. So I understand that I pay for what I get. So I will, make sure you're interviewing, make sure you're asking all these questions: how you're screening, what type of systems are you using, what happens if a tenant's late on the payments, what's the process that we're going to go through if we need to evict somebody, how long is that going to take? Make sure you're educated on all that information. But big thing for me is I really choose not to be involved in that side of it. I'm really looking at, obviously I want to make some net income, but I'm really looking long term. I want the appreciation on all these properties.
All right. One of the other things that you'll get when you get the background check, you'll also get a feel for any criminal background. And so I want to just ask you guys the question: what's the funniest thing that you've seen on a criminal background? And I'll start. I had this rental property in Surprise, and this was years ago. And this lady, everything looked good, but back then there was like a speedometer on the credit report, and then with a little needle in red, yellow, green, and red's bad. I'm like, man, everything looks good, but it's red. And so I was going through the criminal background, and she at one point got cited driving in the city of Surprise with no windshield and chose not to go to court. And I'm like, I'm renting to her.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, come on. What, these cops don't have a sense of humor?
Right?
No.
It's hot.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't need some wind.
I don't know if mine's funny, but I guess it's probably like the most peculiar story that I'd heard, and I did get the documentation on it, so it was true. He had a domestic violence thing pop up, and I said, hey, look, I'm able to pull this on the soft pull, so I don't even want to charge you your application fee. So I just air it all out there. You have some domestic violence stuff on your background, and so I need to know what that is, because it's not gonna work for me. And he said, yeah, well, a couple months ago, my soon-to-be ex-wife beat the hell out of herself and tried to say that I did it, and here's all the evidence, and here's all the court stuff finding me, innocent, and she's just crazy
That's
batty.
wild.
And so that's why I'm leaving her, and that's why I need to rent your place. And I was like,
buddy.
And I was like, you're cool.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, dude.
Sorry it took you this
Yeah,
long to
here's
get out
a bottle
of
of
that.
whiskey, and yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any cool stories.
Okay.
Zero.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the move-in and move-out process. So you got an application. You've done your background. You've done your due diligence, and okay, yes, I'm going to rent to John and Susie here. Now it's move in, move out, and I agree with you, Justin. Everything that we're presenting right now, you don't have to worry about it if you hire a property manager.
I think you do.
I still
just
worry
meant
about
you-
it.
you're
I
not-
do.
you're
I still
not-
pay attention to, especially.
I'm not saying that. You're not having to do all of this work. Okay, the property manager is going to show up and tour the home with them and make the checklists and so forth. But what are some of the special things that you guys do for your move-in and move-out process?
So for me, in when I have somebody move out, we go through. First of all, we're checking to give deposits back. So I want to specifically go over there and look at the property myself, because unless my eyes are on it, nobody's going to care about the property as much as me. So if you have a property manager, I would highly suggest doing this, just because I feel like things are missed when this happens. So for instance, I had a tenant that wasn't supposed to have any animals, and where the bed sat, it was just loaded with cat fur. And I'm like, well, there was a cat in here, and there's people that are allergic to animals, and so I said, well, we're taking the deposit because I'm going to replace this carpet. But there's certain things that you look at. But going through, we make sure that all the old holes in the wall are covered up. We put a fresh coat of paint on. We make sure the carpets are clean, the floors are clean. We have a cleaner come in. We make sure just everything's in good working order. The water's running good. The sinks are draining well. The tub's draining well. The toilets are flushing properly. They're not running. We make sure that the exterior of the house is in good shape. Does it need to have a coat of paint on it, or does it still look good? What kind of landscaping do we need to do? Is there weeds that need to be pulled? Is there dog poop in the backyard that needs to be picked up? Things like that. You want somebody to walk in and because at this point, I'm trying to bring in new tenants. I want them to see how well we take care of the house. When it comes to move-in, after we've had a couple showings, we just have another cleaner go back out and just touch it back up, put the lines on the carpet, make sure everything's in good shape. That's what we do on our end.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot different, but I do every 3 years hire Anthony and have him come out do a full-on inspection for everything. Because even if it's not something that a tenant cares about, they're, like you said, they're not going to take as good a care of the property as you are. And so if there's something that they don't care about, maybe a light isn't turning on or something like that, they might not say anything, but really there might be an electrical issue that was, could have been super easy to fix when that switch went out. But now that whatever happened, I don't even know how that would turn into something crazy, but you get the idea. So I do have Anthony come out there with HCP and do a full inspection on the property. every 3 years, and I generally do a coat of paint every single time we turn over tenants. We do a lot of pictures, a lot of video, and then I do give them their move-in, move-out form, and I give them 7 days after they moved in order to fill it out. I might give them an extra day if they have a good reason behind it. Maybe they couldn't quite move in until the 4 days into the lease for whatever reason. So on that front, I'll be reasonable. But if they take the keys from me and they're moving in on May 1st, then I expect it back on May 7th, and I'm not going to give them a whole lot of grace unless it's something above and beyond what I already knew about, which I document those things too. Because if I know that, hey, the disposal's making a loud sound, I'll write that down on there before I even give it to them. And it's just something that I know. I'm not saying I'm going to fix it. What I'm saying is I recognize that it's already been going on. The disposal's still functioning fine. It's just, might be on its last leg. So that's, in addition to what you do, I do those things.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and I'd say also one of the things that we often forget, property managers don't forget this because they've got very, very specific checklists. But I mean, how many times do people turn a house over to a tenant and forget to tell the tenant, hey, you got to turn on the utilities? And if you do tell them to turn on the utilities, and here's the name and number of the utility company, not calling the utility company the next day or 2 days later, verifying, because Ryan and I, we had a problem with our tenant down in Casa Grande, but we were on top of it, and we're like, hey, you got to get this. And one of them, I don't know why he didn't, but he finally did. But then we're
because
like,
it was a pain in the ass to get utilities on.
but we're
in
like,
Casa
okay,
Grande.
but you owe us.
Right.
And so forth. Couple quick questions on your thoughts. Because one of the biggest questions we get is about pets. What are your thoughts about pets, cats, dogs, types of dogs, things like that? And for me, as far as, well, I'll let you guys start.
Well, I mean, I'm limited based on what legally I have to allow. So things within allowance, then I do. But I also, if I'm normally charging a pet fee. And if I'm not allowed to charge a pet fee because they're either a service animal or emotional support animal, then obviously I can't. But I do make it very clear that hey, love pets, totally get it. But if you are not a responsible pet owner, just know that I am going to be all over your security deposit on that, because most of the time people are just trying to work the system. Like not everybody, most people. And because of that, I am not allowed to discriminate, which I don't discriminate, but some people are just trying to buck the system, and people that are trying to buck the system, I am discriminating against.
Well, I'm really trying to get into the types of dogs. That's what we get.
I don't really care anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't care anymore either. I mean, you can have I feel I'm a pet lover too. I feel like you can have a bad dog in any breed. I mean, obviously, a bad Great Dane can be more damaging than a
tame pit bull,
right? Or a bad Great Dane compared to a bad Chihuahua. I mean, the Chihuahuas can do damage, but not near as much as a Great Dane. I just if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And same thing as you. It's hard because of the laws and everything. But I've had people come in and I say, no, I'm not gonna let you in, and they're somehow the rental management company comes back to me and they're like, well, they're offering another $150 a month. Let them in.
Yeah. Money solves a lot of problems when it comes to that. I'd say more importantly than that, I have less of a problem with the types of dogs, but the people that come in with 6 dogs.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, okay, like
That's gonna.
Let's pump the brakes here. This is a little excessive.
I think you also need to contact your insurance company.
Of course.
Are there any breeds
Great idea.
that would affect my coverage on renting?
That
to
used
somebody?
to be a thing, but I haven't really found any insurance companies that really have a problem, because I think that they all recognize that any type of dog can be damaging, or any type of dog can be trained.
All right, I want to get your thoughts on this. So typically on a long-term rental, and we're not going to have time to get into midterms and short-term, so we'll push that into next week.
Okay.
Typically on a long-term, we're leaving obviously utilities to the tenant, landscaping to the tenants, pest control to the tenants. I don't like to leave pool servicing to my tenants, because tenants, to me, can destroy a pool pump and destroy a pool quickly. And so I feel like for me as a landlord that I should incur that cost. Agree or disagree?
I've only let one tenant take care of the pool, and he owned his own pool company.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I've only let one tenant take care of a pool, and it's my mother-in-law. So same thing. I agree with you, Mike, 100%. If you have a pool, make sure that thing's serviced. I've seen some nasty pools come out of rentals, but I also like to have the landscaping done as well. I know that's an extra charge, but I just love making sure that everything's taken care of. And you know what? A lot of times the tenants appreciate the fact that that's being taken care of. That might get me less active, interested parties, but I like having my landscape taken care of.
All right, if you would like some more information on turning a property into a rental property and the entire process, and you want to talk to professionals, people who do it, go ahead and text the word process to 623-AZ-RECON. That's process to 623-AZ-RECON. And one last question real quick. How do you, if I'm not going to use a property management company, what are some tricks that I can use to determine how much I should charge for rent?
It's not a whole lot different than how you approach what you would sell your home for. Generally speaking, you're going to have quite a bit of comparables in the neighborhood if you're in a bigger city, right? And you're going to know whether or not your home is going to stick out as like a sore thumb being a rental. So if that's the case, then you might reconsider whether or not you actually use it as a rental. But that being said, most of the properties in the greater Phoenix or Maricopa County, you're gonna have, I don't know, half dozen to a dozen that have recently closed that are within, the same type of square footage, rooms and baths and any other type of amenities that your property may possess. So I would go on. I'd go on to the MLS. You definitely want to get somebody that's a professional in that area, even if you don't want to hire them as a property manager because you want to save on that. It's going to be worth it to you to do at least upfront heavy lifting that has access to all that information, give you a hand on that.
So I look at Zillow, Trulia, and I look at what things are going for in the area, and I weigh my property out. Now, a lot of people are going to have this is your property, so you're a little biased on it a lot of times, but your activity is going to tell you, how your property is listed, and depending on how long you want to wait, you could keep your price high, or you can be aggressive and get somebody in there. It's pretty quick. It's not like a home that's sitting on the market. If you lower your monthly rent to get somebody in there, they're not going to come at you and be like, well, they're desperate. Hey, you listed it at $2,500. You just dropped it from $2,700. I'm going to give you 24. No, they don't come in and negotiate like that. If you're at the right price, you're going to get activity. So I agree, make sure you're doing your due diligence there, whether you have a property manager or not. Typically the property manager is just trying to get it rented. And I don't feel like that they're going to give me anything that I don't know from the systems outside of their systems. So do your own due diligence.
And one thing is if we do help you and assist you in buying an investment property, we always get your first tenant in there for free.
Yep.
We do not manage it.
That's awesome.
But we will vet them, and we will go through all the systems and processes that we just talked about and make sure that you're set up for success.
We're going to talk about that next week.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
All right. If you'd like some more information about what Ryan just said, or turning a house into an income-producing property, or just trying to figure out how to qualify tenants and what are some of the best processes and systems, all you got to do to reach us is text the word process to 623-AZ-RECON. That's process to 623-AZ-RECON.